It's a pleasure to be talking to you today. What we want to do is just talk a little bit about the token-based licensing that we have now introduced with NX and the value it can give to you and the flexibility it's going to bring you as you can look at using NX and deploying more, getting more from the models that you're working with, the designs you're working with. Before I start, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play you a short video that will give you an overview about what we're talking about when we talk about tokens. And then I'll go in and try and expand a little bit more on the concepts in the video, and then we can take you through some potential scenarios. So I'm just going to play this video and say this will give you the basic outline of what's going on.
The traditional approach to software licensing offers good value for departments in which users perform a given set of tasks to solve recurring issues. Typically, a platform is complemented with one or a few applications that cover static functionalities. To deal with the challenges of a rapidly changing development environment, we are introducing value-based licensing. This alternative approach facilitates the discovery of new applications and increases flexibility when it comes to capacity planning for multiple users. Depending on the specific situation, a mix and match of the traditional way of licensing and value-based licensing should be tailored to find the optimal balance. Let's have a look at how value-based licensing exactly works. Starting from the required desktop module, it offers a fully flexible environment in which users can explore different functionalities. Companies acquire a set of tokens which allow the running of a wide array of applications, each covering a specific need. Based upon the value of a certain individual application, it consumes less or more tokens when active. Whenever not in use, the corresponding tokens become available again to run other applications. Users can swap between applications on the fly and explore new ways of working at will. The story becomes even more interesting when combining two users, each with their own desktop and set of tokens. Just imagine that a worker is confronted with the maximum token limit. By having a joint token pool, the limitation is automatically lifted, as he or she is able to claim unused tokens from a colleague. In this context, it's also perfectly possible for users to use the same application simultaneously, as long as the token maximum is not reached. Now, just imagine the possibilities of a corporate setup. In many cases, the total investment is smaller compared to acquiring isolated licenses. Yet the flexibility dramatically increases, regardless of whether the modules are used daily or occasionally. By combining all tokens, this approach also effectively deals with peak workload requirements. Another typical corporate pain is a shift in focus over time to use a certain application to address certain issues, leaving the old way of working for what it was. Without value-based licensing, this could lead to idling licenses, whereas now, the tokens can seamlessly be applied to support the new methodology. Last, but not least, most new product features and functionalities automatically become available to all users, so that they can check out the extra value they bring without any budget increase. In short, value-based licensing offers a truly flexible, cost-effective, simple-to-scale approach that reduces risk over time and encourages users to maximally explore new possibilities. Thank you for watching. Please visit our website for more detailed information.
Okay, so hopefully that gave you an initial understanding of the concept of tokens. Some of you may already be familiar with that approach, really from if you use some of our products like SimCenter 3D. But let's explain a little bit more about what tokens mean and what tokens mean to you. And as Andrea mentioned, if you have any questions, if you type them in, she will ask, and we will try and answer as many questions as we can as we go through, and we'll try and hopefully give you as many answers as we can. The whole thing about the token licensing is that we wanted to give you more flexibility and an easier way of accessing the products that we traditionally have as add-on modules with NX. And so what we've done is we've taken about 50 products. It's actually growing all the time, so it's now up to about 54 products that are part of our add-on module catalog and put them in the token license pool. So what it really means is that if you take this token-based approach, you have access to all of those products as long as you have enough tokens in the pool, to run as you go. And then what you'll do is the tokens are checked in and checked out again based upon your usage and when you're using things. So it allows you one of the big values of token-based licensing is if you have occasionally needed products. So you may not need human modeling every day of the year. You may use it once a year, twice a year. You may have a situation where you'd like to use the human modeling tools, but you don't actually have them. With token licensing, you do. You have all of the products that are in those 50 products in the pool, and you have access to those. Importantly, another topic that comes up often when we come to user events, things like Realize Live, things like the regional user conferences, is people ask about new modules. How can you access new modules? How can you get access to those products right from the day one, from when you install the product? And as we're adding new products, we're adding them to the token pool immediately as they come into play. So it's really a cost-effective way of accessing these products. And really, the goal is obviously, if you take the breadth of the products, the 50-odd products, that would be probably a cost barrier for you. And taking the token approach allows us to offer you ways of getting access to these products without a high upfront initial purchase cost for things that you may use not too often. So in some ways, token licensing is similar to your traditional per-seat floating licenses. This is similar because we use the same license mechanism. We check out what licenses you need as you need them. So when you're in a function that's doing something like routing, we check out the routing license. And when you finish the routing, we check the license back in. But at that point, we also put the tokens back in the pool. The reason it's different from those licenses is you're not explicitly selecting up front when you first make a purchase that I want to use routing, or I want to use human modeling, or I want to use mechatronics concept designer. They're just there. They're just available. And so you're not getting this situation where you're sitting there and saying, okay, well, I've got these products which I must have, and I've got this pool of products which would be nice to have, but they're not mission critical. You've got access to all of those products, and you can actually start using them and getting more value, and getting value from the investments we make in those products, and making it more accessible for you. So what you end up with is a far greater set of products that can be accessed. So to try and put it into a kind of a more graphical area, in a typical environment, you've got this small pool of products, and you may have 10 users, and then you've chosen to take 3 routing seats, whichever combination you've taken, and that's your pool. That's effectively what can be shared around your 10 users. What we're saying with tokens is that your pool is enormous. Your pool has more than 50 products in it now, and you can choose which ones you're running. And say, if you've got something you use every now and again, you can access it, and it's not going to impact you because it's coming out of the token pool. Now, a few things about how tokens work. Okay, so tokens are not a replacement for your existing core product sets. So tokens add on top of a base application. So, for example, base applications can be Mac 1 floating and above, or maybe some of you might be in the automotive area and are using the automotive supplier bundles that have part numbers of beginning AS. And some of you even may be more dedicated towards Daimler, but that's Depending on what configuration you have. So you have the base license, which is your core NX products. And this is really talking about the strength of all the things that sit around the core modeling tools, which give you access to more functionality. Now, sometimes when I talk to customers, they'll say, how can I find out, what token values each thing is? And actually, if you are moving up into the current releases of NX and you look under help about NX, you'll notice that one of the things we do when we list you up about NX is we actually give you a list of the various products and their token values. So you can get a sense of kind of where you're going with that. Now, a bit later on, I'll talk about some considerations that you might want to do if you want to take this approach. And one of my recommendations is that you talk to the team at Saratech, because they can help you size the number of tokens that you may need in your pool. Think about that swimming pool with, how big you want it. Do you want a 25-meter pool or a 50-meter pool? Depends on how many users you've got. Depends on what applications you're thinking of using. Getting that advice can come, and Saratech can help you do that with the tools that we're helping people with, things like the being able to size the pool. Now, hopefully that's kind of an understandable thing. So you've got a set of tokens, a pool of tokens. You can have your multiple seats of NX, and then you're accessing the tokens as they go. So each application in the pool takes a defined number of tokens, and they get checked out, they get checked back in again. So it floats in and out as needed. Now, you'll hear the term value packs. So we bundle up the tokens in sets of 100 and 50s. So we don't expect you to come and say, I want 23 tokens, please. Right? The idea is to give you flexibility. So there's a pack, 100 or 50. Now, currently, the token licensing was implemented in NX 1872, which was the release that we released in the middle of this year. But we are going back and actually adding it and making it available for customers running NX 1202 and above. And that is scheduled at the moment for delivery in January. So if you are currently running NX 12, you're not ready to move on to continuous release at the moment, but you think you may have value of going to tokens, that will be available to you early in the new year. Now, I'm going to give you an example, kind of more practical example of how things go. And hopefully this will really kind of give you some sense of how this all comes together. So imagine that you have 5 seats of NX and you've chosen to buy 5 Mach 1 seats. So you've got all of the core modeling, drafting, assemblies, capabilities that are in Mach 1. But you also buy a 100 token value pack. Now, you start your day 9 a.m. I'm currently speaking to you from the UK. So in Europe, 9 a.m. start is very common. Obviously, I know in areas like California, 6 a.m. is probably more common, or 7 a.m. But bear with me. So you've got a 9 a.m. start, and your users, all the users log on. They're picking up all the Mac licenses. You're maxing out. You've got everyone working away, and then about 9:30, one of your users starts up human modeling. He wants to put a mannequin in to prove something out in his design. So he starts human modeling, and at that point, the system says human modeling costs 26 tokens. What that's left in your token pool is 74 tokens. So those 74 tokens are sat there, and they're waiting, and moving on. Your designer using human modeling has brought his mannequin in, he's moving it around, he's validating his assembly. Now, another one of your users is actually starting to do some complex design. He wants to do some complex shaping, some industrial design type work. So he's fired up in Realize Shape. So realize shape takes 35 tokens. So now your token pool is 39. So you've got 39 tokens left in the pool. So any application that is 39 tokens or less could be run. So we're working away. Now at that point, 10, maybe 10, 15, after doing all of this work to prove out that the design is good and the mannequin fits and various adjustments, your user that started human modeling finishes with it. It comes out the human modeling functions, and immediately those 26 licenses go back in the token pool. So your token pool is back up to 65, which means, and so you now have more capacity for more other add-ons. And similarly, you could then say somebody starts up doing some routing, and so a bit later, somebody could start doing routing and brings up, and now routing takes 25 tokens. So your token pool is going up and down accordingly. But you'll notice we used 3 different applications. You haven't had to specify those up front. So nobody has actually, when you've done your initial configuration of NX, you haven't actually sit there and said, I want human modeling, I want routing, I want realize shape. All of those are just available in the pool. All you've actually said as a customer is, I want to use tokens for my add-on modules. Okay, so it's a flexible way of accessing this wide breadth of applications. In many ways, it just gives you more access to the functionality and to making the designs and models richer. So hopefully that kind of gives you a sense of that there's this flexibility element to this, and there's this whole flexibility and cost effectiveness. Now, there are a number of factors that you will need to consider when you're looking at using tokens. If you want to use tokens, one is the number of users accessing the pool. If you've got 10 users accessing the pool, you'll need more than if you've only got 2, because the number of people that are going to be using different combinations. Then another point is to think about what you have as daily use products versus the occasional use products. If every day that you do work, you have users using Mold Wizard, my recommendation to you is you should be looking and saying, okay, I am going to, those would be better to carry on with traditional licensing, because you don't want to get to a situation where somebody doing routing and other functions like human modeling, like Mechatronics Concept Designer, then stops Mold Wizard being available because you've run out of tokens. So you can make sure, and now you can mix and match. And once again, Saratech can help you get this configuration right, get a good sense of this configuration that suits your business need. One of the things we're not saying is that you have to use 100% tokens or 100% a la carte. It's your choice. It's whatever makes it easier for you to work. I'd also say that token pools are more cost effective if you have a potential wide variety of applications needing to be run. So you'll see my comment is, if you're only ever using one add-on module and you never foresee yourself ever doing any of the other things, token modeling probably isn't, token licensing probably isn't an approach for you. If you have a flexibility, if you want to get more from the model, if you want to get those designs, if you have situations where you've seen things we presented and gone, yeah, actually that could be really useful to me. Animation designer, for example, I do some animations. I do some moving parts, and I do an analysis of moving parts, once a month or once every 2 months. Most of my time is spent doing styling work. You can do that, and you get more benefit from that. So you can make a mix. You can mix the tokens and the floating. So the whole idea is really to give you that flexibility at a price that suits what you need for your business. And as I've mentioned a couple of times, Saratech are here to help. We're here to help with them, help make sure that you get the best configuration that suits your needs as a business. Now, we've not had any questions yet, which is which is interesting. So hopefully it's all clear. I'm sure there may be some other questions later on, but there are some questions that come up regularly when I talk to customers, when we have this opportunity to present the idea of tokens. Is so kind of how does the tokens packaged up? So the first point about tokens is they're packaged up in packs of 50 and 100, and they're on subscription, and they're only on subscription. And the reason for that is we wanted to give you more flexibility about both expanding the token pool and contracting the token pool if you needed to. So the whole idea is that by taking them on subscription, we have it's a more flexible pricing approach for you to use this. Now, we are sometimes asked, can I run design and simulation? At the moment, we've chosen that not to pursue that approach. We've had both customers ask us that they would like to do it, and we've had other customers that have told us that they absolutely do not want to share their design tokens and their SimCenter tokens because of budgets and how things are allocated inside their organizations. So at the moment, we've taken the path that the design tokens are separate from the SimCenter 3D tokens. And that's really, as I say, it's a choice that we made, having had feedback from a number of different customers, of both large and small customers, who talk about the way that they do their budgeting and the way that they do their departmental planning. Now, another question that comes up, and I've when I presented at the European User Conference, this was probably the first question that got asked was, well, what about my existing installation? I've got a whole group of add-on modules, but tokens sounds attractive because as I say, I've got the things I know I must have, but now I've got a laundry list of things that would be nice to have, but I've not really budgeted for. So can I mix them? Can I keep the things that I absolutely must have because they're crucial to my workflow, but then have this pool of tokens for the things that would add value to me, but they're not as crucial to my day-to-day business? And the answer is yes. You can do that. It works fine. The scenario, for those of you who are technical, is that when the system checks the license, the first thing it will do is it will check out and say, have you purchased have you got a license that is a dedicated license for this? And if so, we'll check that out. If not, if that license is already taken or you don't have it, we'll look for the tokens and check out the required set of tokens. So that's that. I mentioned earlier that at the moment this is on the continuous release path. It started with 1872, which was the summer release, and will continue on. But we are looking at how we can add support for people using NX12. One of the other questions that comes up is around borrow. So could a user go and borrow a set of tokens and go offline, go home, take a bunch of my tokens with them, and then be using the area? And the answer to that one is no. The tokens are actually kind of dynamically checked in and out of the pool, so you can't borrow them from the pool. So you have, when you're using tokens, it means that people need to be connected to the license server to do the increments of tokens ins and outs. Once again, that was a... Yep, sure.
I'm sorry. We do have a question from Norman. He wants to know, are tokens automatically checked out as a module is accessed?
That's a good question, Norman, and it depends on the application. So for something like PMI, then yes, it's checked out when the application is accessed, and then it's checked back in again when you come out of PMI. There are applications, so for example, Realize Shape. Realize Shape, once again, if you go into that taskbar, that was one that'll take it. But there are some applications that we have where commands will trigger to check out and check back in again on a more dynamic. A lot of the answer really depends on the environment that it's in. If it's a task type environment, and some of you will know what that means, it's the kind of individual ribbon bar that is entirely about that function, then it's checked out when you go into the module, and then it's checked back out, checked back in again. So sometimes you'll notice some functions actually check licenses out temporarily and then back in again, much rather than going in and out of application. But in general, it's going to an application like PMI, like Realize Shape, like the facet modeling, the convergent modeling type applications, the reverse engineering applications, and we'll take the license at that point. The minute you go application modeling, that license goes back into the pool, and those tokens go back into the pool, and away you go again with the rest of the licensing. So hopefully that's clear. I know it was kind of a longer answer, but in general, your summary is correct. Is basically as you go in and out of the application.
And it looks like his follow-up question is, how do we decide how many tokens will be necessary? I know you said that, Saratech can help out, but just in a nutshell, what's the best way to figure that out?
In a nutshell, well, we have, one of the things we have that tools internally that people like say that Saratech and ourselves can use is some calculators which allow us to, you sit down with one of our team, just talk about, the types of number of users you have, and the types of demands of things you want, and then we can balance out and say, okay, well, approaching it this way, if you do all tokens, this is what it's going to, what you're going to need, and this is at the end of the day, one of the kind of side questions is, and how much is it going to cost me, and of course, and then the other option, then we could look at other alternatives, saying, okay, well, but that function, that module I use all the time, so I want one of those that is is a standalone license, and the rest is tokens, and get used some mix and matches. So we say we have calculators. They are that we can use to help size that pool. And it's really about a conversation. It's about identifying what you need to decide is how many people you have that are going to be concurrently accessing the pool, and what type of product sets that you're thinking about that you would use. If you use routing, if you use MCD, if you use tools like human modeling, animation designer, each and get some sense of saying, okay. And the thing that really helps out is if you have a kind of almost peak workload condition. So if you're saying, well, I've got 10 workstations, and at any time, maybe 2 or 3 people will be doing routing. And so then from that we can help you work out a good sizing that will support your needs on that one. Okay, so there's no follow-up questions. So sort of to summarize, and hopefully that this is a new approach for us into the product engineering product line. But it's not really a new approach for Siemens. Siemens Digital Industry Software have been offering tokens with the products like the SimCenter 3D products, with some of our other products around that are in our simulation suite, being able to do tokens. So we know tokens very well in terms of how tokens work and kind of the balancing up of how we can do this. It offers you numerous advantages. It actually gives you access to this pool of products, and it's, as I mentioned, it's always growing. I mean, as we come through into the releases that come out in the Christmas and in the middle of next year, there will be new modules that get added, and as they get added, they will go into the token pool, so that number of products will grow, and it means that you can access those products from day one, from the minute you upgrade to that release. They're there. You don't have to worry about getting them. So it gives you that flexibility. As I say, today I could be heavily involved in doing lots of routing. Tomorrow I could be doing animation. I could be doing complex shape design with industrial design tools like Realize Shape. and it gives you that flexibility. So, and really, it's not really just focused on large or small customers. You can, most companies can get benefit for this if you're doing lots of work where you want to get more into your model, more than just doing the CAD design. You want to start building up using tools like Animation Designer, using the routing tools, those types of things. And it is an extremely cost-effective way of doing this versus going through and listing out a long shopping list of add-on modules, which you then, would then look at and say, okay, well, can I budget for those, or do I have to start skinnying down to meet my budget? It's actually a very cost-effective way of approaching doing this licensing.
Paul, Norman had another question. Is this methodology working toward the continuous release concept?
It's actually, it fits in with the continuous release. It's actually, as I say, one of the first options we included was with continuous release. What you'll find with continuous release is that the pace that we can introduce new applications is faster, because of course we're on a more, in the past with continuous release, we waited until this major milestone, which was a release, which tended to be 16, 18 months apart for those major releases. And what that meant was if something we had didn't make a release, we had to wait for 18 months before we could actually get it into your hands. Now we don't. Now we can actually get this into your hands. And of course, by using tokens, it means not only can we get the software in your hands, but you don't have to worry about then coming to, getting access to it, because you've got the token pool available and it's there to start using from day one.